Perfect, perfect. This is looking good. And I'm going to hit record here on cloud. And we are live. Beautiful. Cool, Steve. How you doing today?
I'm really good, Connor. How are you?
Doing awesome. Thank you so much for taking the time to join. Really excited to have this conversation, share with the folks, and loved our conversation the other day. There's just so much that we have to touch on. But as a way to get started, share with us just a quick 60-second synopsis of your background, what led you to where you're at today.
Well, there's no such thing as a 60-second synopsis,
Right.
but I'll do my best. So, I'm a failed neuroscientist. I was doing my PhD, but I got tired of eating macaroni and cheese. So I went out and got a real job as a software engineer. And but people then figured out that I could form coherent sentences in front of customers. And before I knew that, I was doing, marketing and sales. So I've carried a bag as an account executive. I've done pre-sales. I've been a product marketer, and I've launched client server products. I've at SAP at Computer Associates, I ran product strategy for 3 years for the enterprise management line of business. I spent 7 years at SAP, basically as an internal entrepreneur, either building organizations that didn't exist or fixing ones that were terribly broken and they weren't really delivering the value that SAP was expecting. After SAP, I actually joined LexisNexis as their CMO for North America, and I was also the P&L leader for our law schools division. And that was a lot of fun because I had the opportunity to rebrand the organization and point it more towards millennials as opposed to selling to the gray-haired managing partner in the corner office. I've also had the opportunity to be CMO of 3 FinTechs, one in the capital market space, 2 in the money laundering space. And that's been a lot of fun as well because those weren't large enterprises. They were startups, and the goal was to really scale them. And so a growth opportunity, it's totally different, right? You get your hands dirty, you are deep in it, as well as having to do the strategies, which really
bootstrapping out a lot, which I think, especially in the current era, is what a lot of marketers are going to have to be doing, bootstrapping so much more in their efforts.
For sure. I mean, I really enjoy that. And it's some people look at me kind of weird sometimes because there are CMOs that are big enterprise guys, and then there are CMOs that are mid-market guys, and then there are CMOs that, are startup or growth-oriented CMOs. And I like to do all 3 of them. So, and I'm lucky enough to have had the opportunity to do that.
One thing that really caught my attention when we first connected, literally right on your LinkedIn profile, says killing traditional marketing with pleasure. What do you mean by that?
Well, because I get a lot of joy out of it. But when I say traditional marketing, I think is what you're focused on, is the notion that for the longest time, there's been a classical approach to marketing, right? I'm going to build out my feature set. I'm going to identify the benefits, and then I'm going to identify the channels where my customers inhabit, and then I'm going to try to sell to them, right? For me, marketing is not selling. Marketing is empathy and storytelling. And in the same way that things have moved to where customer experience takes center stage, my type of marketing is to, number one, always have customer experience at the center of what we do. Number one. Number two, don't be an irrational marketing cul-de-sac. Many marketeers, and it's no fault of their own, they were taught a classical 4P approach to marketing. They talk about products from a rational perspective. They try to address why you should buy my widget rationally. But 95% of our cognition is non-conscious. And the goal of the types of marketing that I put in market is to drive the emotional content, the emotional aspect that drives a person to buy. If I walk into Banana Republic, it's one of my favorite brands. I go in and I find a pair of jeans, and I try the jeans on, right? Not in the middle of the store. I go into the changing room, but And I look at the price, and the price is a logical argument for why I should get it. It's on sale, it's 40% off. Then I look at myself in the mirror and I say, God, it makes me feel so good. I look good in these jeans. Completely emotional, has nothing to do with whether or not I should actually purchase the product, other than the fact that it's really, really resonating with me emotionally. You have to have both, whether it's in direct to consumer marketing, B2B, or some manifestation of all three. So yeah, and that's what I mean by killing traditional.
And I think that's what's interesting too, and you and I align very well, and we were talking about is that perspective that consumer marketing is where you get those emotional marketing ties, and kind of the sexy marketing, like that experience you just explained, buying a pair of jeans. How do B2B marketers build upon that? How do B2B marketers implement that in a world where people think they're selling to companies, but they're actually selling to, businesses?
Yeah. I mean, let's say you're selling to teachers and you're selling them pencils. You're marketing pencils to them. Now, pencils are not a sexy product, but they're essential to a teacher. So talking about that essentiality, if there is such a word, rather than the fact that it's a number 2 pencil and it has graphite in it and it's got a yellow cover, rather than talking about the features and the benefits, you're talking about how essential this tool is to your business. As a matter of fact, it's something that you need to be successful. And so you're wrapping in an emotional argument as to why you should actually buy this pencil. If you think about it, every emotion runs on a continuum. You can have abject terror on one side, but if you go to the other side of that continuum, it's desire, it's focus, right? Because fear can either freeze you in place or motivate you to action. So marketing that understands that continuum and nails it on where on the continuum you need to be is what I mean by emotional marketing. One more example: lust, right? Sex sells. In a B2C perspective, depending on the lingerie or shoes that you're selling, that undercurrent of lust is really important to helping you market it. Going back to B2B, desire is the other side of the continuum. I desire to be good in my job. I desire to show my boss that I'm worthy of a promotion. I desire to really help my business because I'm loyal to it. So that's where integrating emotional marketing and rational marketing, I guess, is what I like to do to kill traditional marketing.
Where and when can we work sex sells into B2B marketing? You haven't seen it. You haven't really seen many people implement it.
Yeah, I mean, I can argue that the desire component of that continuum, that lust continuum, is a slight form of that.
Yeah.
But yeah, that'd be
the desire, but the desire, it's more of the end implication of it. It's interesting. Even in like visual B2B marketing, you don't see a lot of sexy marketing out there.
No, you don't, but there's a lot of emotional marketing. Right. Yeah, that's truly how you are successful, by integrating the two.
Yeah. Well, one thing it sounds like you really have specialized in and you bring to any sort of marketing playing field that you're in is, and especially in this kind of current and post-pandemic era, you talk a lot about loyalty marketing versus like new customer acquisition. What does that actually mean?
So from a brand perspective, when organizations were traditionally branding themselves, it was about making themselves attractive to their customer base and trying to, through that attractiveness, develop loyalty by being authentic, being credible, being consistent in your interactions, as opposed to inauthentic, not credible, to the point where the customer can't trust the brand. But now, with customer experience driven marketing and engagements with customers, it's about what the customer has dictated the experience should be. And so brand has flipped, brand marketing is flipped to become customer experience marketing. And rather it being primarily focused by the organization in the hopes that it can build a connection to its customer, it's now directly driven by the customer themselves. And so now brands have to adapt more to their customers than ever before.
And how do they do that? What are some of more of the technical strategies to do that, to make that shift?
Yeah,
because that's true. Also, just to add too, in talking to so many marketers, hundreds of marketers, interviewing lots of people, it's concerning to find how many are creating marketing content, creating campaigns, taking action without actually interviewing or actually like collecting data and real-time feedback from their customers or even their sales team in-house. They don't even talk to their damn sales team half the time.
Right. Exactly right. You can't create compelling marketing and great experiences without knowing who you're targeting, right? That's such a fundamental step to being a good marketer. You asked me, so what are some of the actual things that you can do, right?
Yeah.
So making buying frictionless. Don't give me a hard experience. Don't make it difficult for me to purchase your solution. Number one, if it's a more and that's a very time confined or time constrained purchase. From a B2B perspective, it's that classical buyer journey, of awareness, evaluation, decision. But again, at each point, don't make me work to become aware of your solutions. Don't make me work to figure out whether or not you're the right solution for me. Make it easy. Remove as much friction from the buying process as possible. From more of an experiential perspective, make it fun. People can be serious folk, but the things that delight them, make it easier to do. You love podcasting. You are ravenously engaged in it. That's the thing that's fun for you, but you're still in a very professional mode. It doesn't matter if you're podcasting, if you're buying widgets, if you're buying enterprise software. That undercurrent of fun is important.
Working fun. And so by not making your customers work in someone who's selling a 6-7 figure SaaS product or biotech, telecom, you name it, what are some specific examples of that for B2B buyers?
Yeah. So at SAP, at one point in marketing, I had built out a customer experience team. And our goal was to create a more compelling customer experience for those folks that were buying in our mid-market solutions, where more of the buying experience was online, right? Well, the first time we did this and fielded our experience, to your point, we really hadn't listened enough to our customers. And it was an abject failure. It didn't perform as expected. We got negative reviews. And so the team went back to the drawing board. It's like we had failed big time. And then we said, you know what, we better go out and learn more about our customer to build a better experience. So we re-architected that experience. We introduced more short video content. We introduced more infographics, and it was a more compelling experience because people could, number one, consume things easier. Number two, consume information in the way that they are most tuned to, whether or not you're a textual thinker or an iconic thinker. You had something for everybody. And that's one of the keys to success in that re-engineering.
So content, in your mind, content and being more educational is going to help them not work harder. You're delivering up a lot of the insights to them rather than making them take action, do a meeting, do a call, do a lunch and learn to try to acquire that stuff. Is that kind of what you're talking about?
Well, it's aligning the content with the way people consume information. And that's one of the primary elements of a compelling experience, is like, understand me, understand the way I want to communicate, and then communicate to me in that regard. Do that. Don't learn about me, but then just go ahead and do your traditional content marketing or things like that. This is what I mean about traditional, right? You have to adapt quickly, and you have to understand more of the nuances about how people consume information.
Definitely. Yeah. So, in shifting gears here a bit, a lot of what's happened this year, I mean, just even speaking 2020, Steve, so many marketers were sitting here with 70, 80% of their budget towards trade shows, conferences. Salespeople's budget were allocated towards travel, literally going door to door and meeting their
Yeah.
buyers in their office, at conferences, all that stuff. With all of that being disrupted this year, and we don't even know if that's going to turn back around next year.
Mhm.
What advice, what are the shifts that you're making and that you would recommend other marketers make right now?
Yeah, so in the pandemic, post-pandemic, market, the market's fundamentally changed, right? Because it's given a pause, and so it's given time for competitors to re-up their game. It's given time for organizations to head back to that development roadmap and really rebuild build the catalog of solutions and features that their customers are looking for. So there's this pause, but what do you do in a pause, is I think you're asking your question, is you change your messaging. At the beginning of the pandemic, it's been, don't talk to me about selling. Don't sell to me. Make me feel more comfortable. Be more nuanced in your conversation. Distract me because I'm nervous. I really don't want to focus on this. What I want to focus on is just keeping my job right now. And spending a ton of money on ERP software is not really what I'm going to do right now. But now, we're on this cusp where hopefully things are opening up, and they're opening up safely. People are more refocused on the standard elements of their role. And so now you can begin to integrate this nuance and humor into more acquisition marketing orientation or customer loyalty acquisition. And each of us as marketeers, we already have that cadence, right? We know what's going to resonate with our particular customer base. It's more a matter of growth strategy in terms of what's the message that I want to send: safety, security, and distraction, acquisition, customer loyalty, reorient to your customer experience.
What channels would you be doubling down onto right now to deliver that message?
Yes.
Yes.
Yeah, I mean,
Yeah.
the channels don't change necessarily. You're going to be optimizing the channels anyway, the ones that work best. You're gonna use the channels for your brand where, again, friction is least. That the communication between your customer base and you are typically the ones that you've always used.
So omni-channel, just make sure you're hitting all the channels.
Yes, and let's frame omni-channel a little bit differently.
Yeah.
Yes, there's this whole notion of, wow, you should be everywhere and really expansive in all these channels and making sure that you're hitting on all cylinders. You want to obviously refine that so that you're optimized for the particular channels that are performing best. You may be across a dozen channels, right? But you're seeing of the 4 social media channels that you are engaged in, that Instagram and LinkedIn are working best. So I'm going to, pull budget from one channel and I'm going to double down on the others. Those are the types of things. This optimization and pacing of channels takes you from a pure omni-channel experience to an omni-channel experience on steroids, because you're really focused on the ones that are working.
Is there one in particular you prefer for B2B marketers? Email? Is it traditional mailing? If you had to pick just one that you could really focus in on over the next 90 days, what would it be?
I'd focus on, from a channel perspective, I'd focus on LinkedIn, because LinkedIn tends to have I believe, the highest conversion rates other than website for B2B. And then obviously you're going to be pumping content through that channel, but that's the channel that I would be focused on.
LinkedIn. Got it. Well, one thing else that we had touched on was copywriting and psychology, and a lot of these foundations that marketers know are important, but they're really underestimating how important copy is, how important the psychological aspect of everything is. They're just kind of putting stuff out there just to put it out there because their CEO wants to see that email send or whatever. Right. resources would you recommend to become a pro at copywriting and learning the psychological aspects of B2B marketing?
Yeah. From a content marketing perspective, I like Marketing Profs. It's a great website. Ann Handley, what she does is she's just brilliant when it comes to the ins and outs of developing great content. So that's a great resource to learn that. Number two is it's on the job training, right? You're going to be creating content. And if you are a smart marketer, which I'm sure you are, you're going to be looking at the analytics to see what's performing and what's not. And, you're going to using, again, some of the classical tools, right? You're going to be doing A/B testing on your content. You're going to not only test the content, but you're going to test the experience related to the content. Those are some of the ways that I would go about it. The other thing is train yourself. Just write. That's what I love to do. I just think about bizarre things in my mind and I start writing about them. And I realize that the more I do that, the better I am at connecting to my audience because I'm understanding what's being read and what's not.
So being an actual practitioner, that's interesting too. Like it's like stand-up comedy. I did some stand-up comedy just to like test my creativity back earlier end of this year before all this happened. And that's one thing that I found there too, learning something new outside of marketing is like, you got to actually do this in front of people to learn anything. You can read as much as you can or watch as much as you can, but actually implementing it, it sounds like that's what you're saying for
Right.
Marketing too.
That's exactly right. Be a practitioner. I've been CMO of 250 people organizations, and I still wrote. And as a CMO of a growth startup, you're just another pair of hands, really, right? And so you're definitely getting your hands dirty, and that's what needs to happen for you to be a great marketer.
Beautiful. Well, cool. Well, anything else specific, recommendations, suggestions, anything you want to touch on here as well that you'd like to share?
Well, I think it's critically important that you get beyond the marketing as you know it. To the point that we just said, you got to get your hands dirty. I don't care what size organization you work in. You have to be sitting with your demand generation guys and really helping craft campaigns. You have to be focused on the thought leadership content. I say that marketeers, they sit at the intersection of strategy and creativity. It's their job to help craft corporate strategy and what those business objectives are going to be. But on top of that, then it's their job to develop a creative execution of that strategy so that you can help fulfill it. And I think marketeers should think of their job in that way, that you're not just fielding a tactical email campaign. You have to align what you're doing to the corporate strategies, the business objectives of the organization, which also says that you have to have a clear communication channel between marketing, not just at the senior level, but down to the execution level. You want the whole team to be behind the strategies, and not just from a loyalty perspective, but aligning their talents to the objectives of the organization.
So the strongest external communications comes from a strong internal communication strategy. Actually talking to the people in your company. And do you recommend actually like setting up meetings or doing surveys internally or all of the above? How would you go about that?
Yeah, all of the above. I think one of the biggest issues with internal customer understanding is that there's a disconnect between the executive team and the line employee or the mid-tier employee. And the reason that I've seen that that's the case is I've seen some executive teams that feel that, the stuff we talk about at the senior executive level shouldn't be shared, right? Or we'll massage it in such a way that will lessen the impact of what we really talked about. And that's a no-no.
Yeah, you think that leadership mentality is dead/dying?
No, which is very concerning to me. I recently worked in a company where this type of environment that I was talking about existed. And it was frustrating to me to no end. Things like, hey, let's put out a newsletter that, frames all this stuff. And no, I don't want anything to write it.
Definitely.
So, and that's wrong. Stuff's gonna leak out anyway. But getting an engaged employee base is critical to success. I think Gallup a couple of years ago published a survey that said 80 some odd % of employees were unengaged. But companies that are engaged are having engaged core employee base have more talent attraction, more talent attention. Their stock in public markets outperforms those that don't. So there's a real value to having an engaged employee base.
Well, Steve, thank you so much for sharing. And also, how can people find you, get in contact with you, follow you for more?
Yeah, well, follow me on LinkedIn. That's number one. Number two, pick up the phone and call me, 646-257-9135. Happy to take your calls.
Careful, dangerous move there, man. Put the phone number out. Send him some pics, send him some videos, all the fun stuff. And definitely go connect with Steve on LinkedIn. We'll put your link up there in the bio and everything. And again, really appreciate your time. It's been super helpful. Guys, make sure you go connect. We'll see you over on